marketing and business development had changed. If you run a good marketing podcast strategy, you never run out of content to use in your marketing. If you want a result within like 3 weeks, don't even bother. Don't even start. Take the footage, use that as your marketing material, and you're almost doing 30% of the work and you're getting 80% of the gain. So probably I'd say you dedicate 4 or 5 hours max a week for everything. And you can even make that a bit less depending on how much production you want to do. All my episodes, what I do is I take a little 30-second trailer out of it and I put it through a great product called Splasheo, which is just SPLASHEO. And I use those as my little trailers that I put all over social media. And I really go to town with all that. And I drive people to my main episodes using those as the hook.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BAD Academy podcast. I'm super excited to have you here as always. On today's episode, I would like to interview a man who has a lot of different interests, and I would like to chat about those interests. And most of those interests are related to pretty much everything that you guys are interested in. More or less. So I would like to introduce you to Darren Saul. He loves people and loves sharing the inside stories and knowledge he gained over the years, launching and growing a number of his podcasts. Now he helps individuals and business owners build trust and get results with his simple 3-part podcast marketing system that removes confusion and overwhelm. He is also very passionate about photography. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex. What a lovely introduction. That was very cool, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
So with me introducing you, that's one thing, but I do like when guests also share a little bit about themselves. Could you share your story of how you jumped into the world of podcasting,
Sure.
as well as the photography? So basically being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I'll go all the way back. So I started working, and I still work as a corporate recruiter, as an IT recruiter, working for a number of different IT companies. And after about maybe 20 years or so, 18 years or so, 19 years, I started to realize that marketing and business development had changed. And you couldn't just get on the phone, send emails cold, do letter drops, advertise. Things were changing. And I realized that the culture and the marketing psychology was changing. And so I stumbled onto social media, digital media, and podcasting in particular. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to jump on and I'm going to start a podcast because I think that's a really great way for me to start trying something new. And it worked so well. And I did this for both my recruitment business and, as you mentioned, I do a little bit of photography on the side. I've always been a keen photographer from school, and I do a little bit of work on the weekends, and I wanted to build that business as well. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to set up 2 podcasts, one for my recruitment business, one for my photography business. And it's been like 6-7 years, and I love it. I've never looked back, and I have seen incredible results on both sides. For 2 reasons, and I always talk about podcasting as a master marketing tool for 2 reasons. So one is the just general awareness and brand recognition you get from, having a show on the web, sharing your show around, people listening to you, building trust, credibility. But then the other key factor is that if you run a good marketing podcast strategy, you never run out of content to use in your marketing.
Oh, so true.
That is the power. And a lot of people don't realize that and don't really leverage that enough, including guests. So if you're a guest on a podcast and you don't want to have your own show, fine, but go to town with the raw files and really leverage that recording to the best of your ability, because that is the power of the episode, not the episode itself. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, and I now help loads of entrepreneurs, small business owners, both guests and hosts, get results out of podcasting. That's my little passion for me.
That is awesome. Are there any specific type of entrepreneurs that you work with, or maybe specific industries?
It's really anything, but it seems to be more of the solopreneurs and small businesses, not so much the corporates, because the corporates either have their own teams or are not interested, or they move too slow, or they've already got their own podcast studio. So it's more the solopreneurs and smaller businesses that are really wanting to make a difference and use this to gain competitive advantage over the big guys.
Okay, interesting. So with your experience, because so this is our, well, in this case, like my second podcast or our second. So I used to have another podcast, but the hardest thing with podcasting, or I guess content creation in general, but we're talking specifically about the podcast. I don't remember the stats, but not that many podcasts hit 100 episodes. So, for example,
Very
like
true.
with the previous podcast, I think I went up to 30 episodes or so.
Wow.
And then I stopped it for certain reasons, and I wanted to go back to it, and then I never did. And then we launched the training company. So I was like, okay, this is it. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put everything that I can into this podcast, all my
Yeah.
energy.
It's very, very true. I would even say a lot of podcasts don't even last episode 10 or 20, let alone 100.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's I've seen that as a pattern, and then I saw the stat, but I don't remember the stat itself right now. So, in case with your podcasts, do you how often do you do that?
So I generally podcast once a week in my own show. And then I'm guesting on a lot of people's shows 2, 3 times a week.
Nice.
Yeah. And I've actually got even more sometimes. Like I've got one right now. I've got one tonight. I've got one on Saturday, but I've got to actually slow that down a bit because I think I'm getting a bit, I'm overdoing it a bit.
Yeah, it's like I had a goal this year to hit to be a guest on 52 podcasts, so basically a podcast a week, so
Nice.
52 weeks in a year. And then my wife and I, we were traveling in the first part of the year, so I wasn't focused on it as much.
Yeah.
And now as we came back, we basically created an entire plan, and now I have a list of 20. At this point, yeah, it's 20 podcasts in a month.
Amazing. Wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
but it becomes like
5 a week.
two. Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Crazy,
Sometimes it's
man.
like 2 episodes per day, like 2 interviews that I go to per day.
Wow.
Plus, I did the training today. Yeah, so I did like one interview today, and then we're doing our podcast as of now,
Nice.
and then did a training. So it's like a lot of talking.
Yeah, it is a lot of time. But you kind of get your story down pat. The more you do
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
and you can really communicate your message, and it becomes relaxed and fun because you've done it so many times.
yeah. That is so true. Because in the beginning, it's like you want to make it kind of perfect, and
Yeah, that's right.
and I realized it's not about it being perfect. It's just like it's about having a real, genuine conversation.
Definitely. That's what I love about podcasting.
Yeah.
It's not like a Hollywood production. It's not a radio show. It's a very authentic conversation, and you can really natural. And I think that's why it's been so popular, and that's why it builds trust so well as well.
I would agree with that. So, what would you say? Let's say if a business owner or a solopreneur, it could be, let's say, like in our case, we work with insurance agents, real estate agents, and different local business owners, mostly service business owners. Um, how would you advise them on starting a podcast? And like how fast? Because the next question that people usually have is like, how fast can I see the results?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the first thing I'll say to people is, if you want a result within like 3 weeks, don't even bother. Don't even start. But if you're serious about being patient and you're going to be consistent and dedicate yourself to the process and go for at least 6 months to a year, you'll start to see some results. And you'll get better at it. You'll get more efficient at it. You'll enjoy it. You'll find your voice. You'll find your niche. You'll find your target market. And once you hit like 50, 60 episodes, you start to get some traction and you start to get some recognition and you get all sorts of opportunities that come about. But you've got to do the time, like just like anything. Like if you do it 3 times, nothing's going to happen. There's that many podcasts out there and new ones starting every day that unless you're going to dedicate yourself to it, don't even bother. And my other piece of advice for people would be if you're really time poor and you don't have the energy and whatnot, do what you're doing and just get on lots of other people's shows. Take the footage, use that as your marketing material, and you're almost doing 30% of the work and you're getting 80% of the game. So that works too.
That is so true. I never thought about it this way. 30% of the work and 80% of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like a lot of like it does take a bit of time to set up the podcast and then especially the post edit, the post production part,
Yep.
and promotion.
Yep. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It's as like in case with I had a meeting this morning, and I was sharing about the social media part, like how the company the non-profit company or the organization, how they could promote themselves because they also get the credit from Google for like $10,000 in Google ads.
Nice.
And we were talking about the content part. I'm like, well, and they asked me about YouTube, like if they should start a YouTube channel. I'm like, well, if you're serious, because YouTube is kind of like your part-time job.
Yep.
It takes a lot of time.
Definitely.
To build that.
Yep. Like content creation in general is a part-time job. It's like
Yep.
you have to dedicate an hour or 2 a day.
Yeah.
For all this stuff because you got to prep, you got to do the recordings, you got to promote, you got to think about the strategy, you got to answer any feedback, you got to respond to comments. All this stuff takes work.
It does. It definitely does.
But it does give you results. If you do it well and you do it effectively and you dedicate yourself to it, you will get results for sure.
Well, and what I noticed is that some people that started the podcast locally, let's say for business owners, that's the best way to do it, to start locally.
Yep.
And when I say locally, I'm referring to like the city or the province, the state.
Yep.
Because that way they can pretty much reach out that audience, and they don't necessarily to try and be the number one in their category. They can just be well known, like the go-to podcast in the area.
Absolutely. And that kind of goes for your own little business network, your own online community, whatever it is. You can be the face that shows up in that space, but you don't have to conquer the world. Like you don't have to be the top selling podcaster of all time. And a lot of people worry about that. So I think there's enough audience for everybody, and it's just about you finding your little community. And you can get incredible leverage and results just from that community. You don't have to, be the number one, top 5 on Apple or whatever else. I always say you don't have to get so obsessed with all the metrics. Just do the work, find your community, be consistent, and results will happen.
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%. Because sometimes people start and then look at podcasts like the Joe Rogan Experience, and it's like he's been doing it for he's been doing it for quite a long time, and he never thought about the podcast to get to the same level as that is today.
Definitely. He's been doing it for I don't know how many years, 10, 15 years? More.
I think 15 years, at least 15 years. Like I saw a video of one of the episodes that they had. Wow. And it was like in a dark room. It's 2 buddies. They're sitting on a couch. You can barely see them, but they're chatting about. I don't remember what. I think it was something about pizza and whatever it was.
Very cool, very cool. But again, it goes to show you that you can start very humbly and just build your audience. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have all the tech. You don't have to have the lighting. You don't have to have the most beautiful studio. And especially now with all the technology and the collaboration tools like this, we're collaborating from across the world.
Yep.
So it's really cool.
By the way, where are you based?
So I'm in Sydney, Australia.
Nice. That is awesome. Yeah, we're pretty much
Canada. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, different parts of the world.
Yep. And I almost like that even more now that you don't have to go into a studio and just be talking to people in your city. I can jump online and talk to people around the world. Much more fun.
Yeah. So you're not necessarily chained to something specific.
Yeah,
But sometimes what I noticed, people do like, especially if it's a video format,
yes,
they do like to watch people at the studio
yep,
having conversation one on one,
that's
just
true.
like again with Joe Rogan or another podcast that I'm listening to is Valentainment or with
Oh,
the
yep,
BBG.
yep, nice.
Yeah. Are
Yep,
there any so let's say if somebody wants to start a podcast, because again, I'm not a professional in the industry itself. Like I'm doing it and I'm learning in the process kind of.
sure.
Um are there any how should I put it? Can I give like 3 or 5 specific steps on how can somebody, a business owner, solopreneur, start? How can they start a podcast, and maybe like what kind of tools can they use? Because I know there are lots of different ones that where you publish a podcast
Yep,
and it distributes across different platforms such as Spotify and
yep,
iTunes
perfect.
and all of them.
Yep, easy. Well, I'll go on a bit of a rant for you.
Yeah,
I'll do
let's
a
do
bit of
it.
a mini training course.
Let's do it.
So first of all, I always like to talk about podcasting in terms of my 3 Ps of podcasting, as you mentioned in the intro. So I really think that's important to think about it from this point of view. So the first P being preparation. So you need to think carefully about what you're doing, what your podcast is going to be about, who your audience is going to be, how you're going to structure it. Are you going to have guests? Are you going to do solo shows? Are you going to do it once a month? Are you going to do it once a week? All the prep you got to think about and put together. Frameworks for how you interview guests, frameworks for information you give guests to prepare themselves, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of prep that goes into it. So that's number one. And then number two is the production side of it. And from a point of view of production, there's lots of tools out there. So we're using Riverside right now. That's a really good one to record
Hmm.
in. I've used Riverside before. I've been on other podcasts with StreamYard and other products as well. And I still to this day use Zoom because it's just nice and easy. But Riverside, the quality of the audio is a bit better. And so if everybody knows how to use Zoom. Everybody's been on a million Zoom calls. So easy. Just take the audio and the video file, and now you've got files ready to use in a podcast. And from a housing point of view, I would definitely recommend using a video version and an audio version. So these days, video is so powerful. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're not doing a video version, and that video version should live in YouTube. YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world, and it's evergreen, so people can keep coming back to it when they search and they find you after a year. So it's very important to be on YouTube and not be on any other video platform. From a audio point of view, there's so many great ones. There's Podbean, which I use. There's Spotify for podcasters, which I use as well.
Yeah, that's the one that we're
Buzzsprout,
using.
yeah, Buzzsprout. What's the other one? Something Cast. There's literally hundreds of them. But Spotify for podcasters is really great and Podbean, because once you set it up really well, you can then go and set up the distribution from the first time and then able to automatically distribute it to all the other podcast channels as well. So once I put it on one place, it'll go to all the others, so I don't have to do it manually. Most of them are doing that these days. So any of those products are really great. Just find one, choose one that you find, that you enjoy, and they're just 2 of them, and work on those. From a production point of view, if you're a Mac person like me, iMac is a great way just to do some basic production. Really easy editing, and you can edit the video and the audio files at the same time and then just export them separately before you put them into YouTube or those other audio channels. So really basic. You don't have to go crazy. You can produce things to the hilt, or you can keep it really simple. And then the other P is the promotion. And unless you start promoting your episodes, nobody's ever going to know you exist. Right? So you can have the best podcast, the best prep, the best production, and nobody knows you're even on the planet. So you've got to promote it. And that's why I talk about my 3 Ps. And from a promotion point of view, You use social media heavily. It's a really good idea to start building a nice newsletter channel, using your email signature, if you want to spend a bit of money on advertising, you can put a low-cost ad campaign on Facebook or something to get across some more audience. There's so many. You can do collaborations. You can start to do sponsorships and other co-productions and start to monetize your podcast that way and building some audience leverage that way too. So there's really, really so many things you can do, but you have to dedicate your time to promotion as well as everything else, because otherwise nothing will happen. So there's just a little bit of a little mini rant on my 3 Ps, but the tools these days are really cheap. You can buy mics for $100, $80, get a couple of ring lights, use your camera on your computer or an extra external cam, and you can set up a whole studio at home for $200. It's nothing. And
easily.
Nothing. Easy.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have big expenses anymore from a podcast point of view. And even if you want to if you want to get some help to produce things, you can outsource it to people in outsourcing freelance communities like Upwork or Fiverr, or, I started working with a few girls from the Philippines, podcast producers, and they're fantastic. And they really do a great job, and it just saves me a lot of time as well. So you don't have to spend a lot of money or a lot of time, but it's quite mature now in terms of what's available.
That is awesome. It was basically a mini masterclass.
Yeah,
so you could take this
masterclass.
Yeah. Now you can take the recording and promote it as a freebie.
Absolutely, that's it.
Awesome. How much time would you say it takes on? So both of your podcasts that you have do you run both? Do you record both of them on a weekly basis, or you publish them on a weekly basis?
I have the one that I run for my recruitment business is more specialized, and that's probably once a month, because I don't always have a guest that I want to collaborate with in that space every week. But my other podcast, which is my general podcast, and I call that my variety show because I talk to all sorts of people about all sorts of things, and that I run once a week.
Got it.
Yeah, so different cadence.
So the reason why I asked you is I wanted to see how much time does it take you usually to run the show. Let's say the one that where you create an episode a week.
Yeah.
To prepare, to record, to produce, do the post production, and promote.
Definitely. I would say if I was doing it all myself before I started getting help, which wasn't too long ago, I'd say you dedicate 4 or 5 hours max a week for everything. And you can even make that a bit less depending on how much production you want to do, right? But now that I outsource it, it could be an hour, because I record the show, I do a little bit of prep, and then I send it off. And maybe 2 hours, because I've still got to load it up. Once it comes back to me, I've still got to load up the files and write a bit of copy and stuff like that. So maybe 2 hours. But if I was doing it only by myself, it'd be 4 to 5 hours. And the other thing I would say is try and use AI now to help you with a lot of that process as well. So when if you're writing copy for your podcast summaries or your episode notes or your whatever, use ChatGPT. Use other products that cut up videos for you. There's so much good AI stuff now.
Yeah.
And even Riverside does this on the back end that does a lot of the work for you. So why waste all your energy if you can get a tool to do it for you in a minute rather than an hour?
Yeah, and guess with ChatGPT, it's like at this point, it's becoming my best friend.
Oh, I use it. Absolutely love it. And the more you use it, and if you use the same thread, it gets to know you.
Yeah.
And it comes out every time spot on the first time. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it knows me so well already.
Yeah. But it's also what's important to do or to know is to write a good prompt, because the quality of the prompt will give you the quality of the answer, basically. 100%. So the better the question, the better is the answer.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen some posts on, let's say, LinkedIn, and you read through the post and it's like definitely use ChatGPT. It's like change it up a little bit.
Yep, definitely. Write a good prompt. You can even tell it to rewrite it a bit more in your own voice.
Yeah.
You can cut and paste a good prompt if you want to use the same prompt for the same thing. Just cut and paste it, copy and paste it, and then tweak it a bit after that. And then, but it can be really it's a game changer.
Oh, it is. Yeah, we're saving so much time right now
Huge.
using it. Okay, you did mention the newsletter. Do you use? So I wanted to ask you regarding that because we do have a newsletter, but we're basically sending it to our database through our backend through the platform.
Yep.
But I'm seeing more and more people started using different
newsletters.
So there's LinkedIn newsletter. Then there are different platforms for newsletters. It becomes like a trend these days. It feels like we're going kind of back in time when people were reading newsletters in the past. Because now a lot of them are promoting it and with the idea to build an audience.
Yep.
I think it was Behance. Have you heard of them?
Oh, no, I haven't heard of that one.
Okay.
Are these like MailChimp, MailerLite, ActiveCampaign?
No, so it's more like so there's medium.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of that one.
Yep.
It's similar to like LinkedIn. Yeah, you can basically create a newsletter on LinkedIn, but with medium.com you have an account. It's so in case with Behance, I think it's Behance. There are a bunch of them where you can create a newsletter and then it goes out to your database and you basically collect. You don't necessarily need to build an entire website and have write articles on your blog. You can just do it this way.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So it's like another distribution channel in a way.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well. Yeah. I haven't played with those, but I generally use MailerLite, which is great.
Okay, nice.
And it's really nice functionality, and I do a lot of automations in that as well, and funnels, mini funnels, in MailerLite, and set up landing pages and all that kind of stuff. And then I've got my database in there, and that all my newsletters and my different correspondence goes out to everybody regularly through MailerLite as well. So it's really
have you thought of using medium.com?
No, I'm going to go check it out after this actually.
Because so I do have an account there. I started writing articles there, but it wasn't too consistent. But now what we decided to do is take the video version or the audio and then create an article out of that.
Yeah.
Because the idea behind medium.com, both medium.com and as you mentioned, LinkedIn newsletters, they both have very strong SEO.
Uh-huh. Nice.
So whenever somebody's either searching for you or for let's say the podcast for you specifically, or the topic that you're covering, medium.com and LinkedIn articles show up quite often.
Amazing. Yep. And that'd probably work really well from a blog, written article blog as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's like you can really get creative with these things.
Yeah.
Speaking of the distribution or the promotion part, are you using TikTok in any way?
I do. Yes. So I promote all my episodes. What I do is I take a little 30-second trailer out of it, and I put it through a great product called Splasheo, which is just SPLASHEO. And that's a really cool, and it puts my video one on top of the other with the guest. It gives me captions, it gives me emojis, and it's really engaging. And I use those as my little trailers that I put all over social media. So I put them on Facebook, I put them on as posts and as reels, I put them on as YouTube shorts, I put them on as TikToks, I put them on LinkedIn, and I really go to town with all that, and I drive people to my main episodes using those as the hook.
Okay, got it.
Yep. So that's how I generally do it. And so I promote on as many channels as I can, linking back to the full episodes.
So is it similar to, have you heard of Opus.pro?
Yes, very similar. I was about to say Opus Pro is another great version. I like Splashio just a little bit better, but it's a little bit more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really cool, and they're both good. If I have some other stuff that I want to just run through and get 10 clips out of, I'll throw it through Opus Pro just because it's quick and easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually it does give you quite a lot of clips, but sometimes it's not doesn't give you the clip that you would like to use unless you choose the keyword.
That's right. Yeah. So I might give you 20 or 30 clips and you might get 5 or 6 out of it. But
Yeah,
if you just want 5 or 6 quick clips, it's perfect.
yeah, which is more than enough because
Which is fine. Yeah.
So I remember prior to when Opus Pro came out, we were providing one of the services was where we do the short form content for our client.
Oh, really? Yep.
And it would take us 30 minutes to an hour to edit 1 minute video.
It's a long time.
Yeah. With all the captions and graphics and emojis.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then it takes a little while to even choose which part you're going to use. It's a lot of that's a lot of work, absolutely. That's why these tools are amazing. That's why I say use AI where you can, because it'll save you a lot of hassle.
Are you using any other tools that help you with your production?
Let me think. What do I use for my production? Well, I send my stuff away now, and a lot of my producers use things like Descript, which is another great product. And there's probably loads of other products that they use to also clean up episodes and level up the volume and take out filler words and just do those little tweaks. So there's like a lot of audio engineers know lots of great stuff. I used to use Pro Tools when I did it myself, and iMovie, which is great. But there's lots of other. If there's a clip that you might say is a bit noisy in the background, if you just search for how do I remove noise in my video background, there'll be 10 tools that pop up for free. Dump your clip in there; it'll remove the background. Like, there is that many tools out there now. It's crazy.
Yeah, maybe with honestly, I think every single day there is at least 1 or 2 different tools in the same category, and it feels like I remember when it was a crypto rush with NFTs and everything.
Yes, that's right.
So that's what it feels like now.
Almost like that now.
Yeah.
And it's an important point, actually, because you've got to just stick to one tool that you like and you understand, and just use it for a little while. You can't keep chopping and changing and adding another tool and another. It just takes too much energy and too much distraction, too much learning. Find something that works well and just use it. Don't get distracted by all these new tools every single day. You'll drive yourself crazy.
I agree 100%.
It's too much.
Awesome. Well, can you share with me where can people find you?
Yeah, for sure. So if anybody wants to jump on my website, it's just suspendedanimation.com.au. You can find all my links to my products, courses, challenges, social media handles, podcasts, everything, all in the one place.
So you just mentioned challenges. What kind of challenge are we talking about?
Yeah. So if anybody's interested, I'm running a free 7-day podcast launch challenge. So if people want to learn about how to use podcasting to the best of their ability, what tools to use, what's the right mindset, how do you promote, how do you produce, how do you collaborate with guests, all that stuff, you can just sign up, and I think I've given you the link to that.
Yeah, we'll definitely add it to the show notes.
So just jump in. It's all automated, so you'll get an email every day, a new email with all sorts of great free content, as well as opportunities to take it further if you want to. But there's lots of great stuff, and it's like a little mini course for 7 days. And by that time, you should really have all the tools you need and the understanding you need to set up your own podcast.
Okay. Well, that is awesome. So maybe I'll go through the challenge myself.
Yeah,
awesome.
And that's a really good point, is even if you've been podcasting for a while, even if it just gives you a couple of ideas, oh, that's an interesting one, it's well worth it, because we're all learning from each other. I'm always talking to people about what they're doing, and I'm always learning something. Even if I get 1 or 2 ideas, I go, wow, I'm going to implement that. and that's worth its weight in gold.
100%. Awesome. Well, Darren, as I always like to finish our episodes, I do believe that time is the most valuable asset, and I appreciate you coming to the show and sharing your time with me.
Oh, my pleasure, Alex. Really appreciate it. It's been a great show. I love the conversation. Very relaxed, a lot of fun, very informative, and I hope the audience got something out of it.
I'm sure they did. Yeah. So, guys, make sure to check out Darren's website and check out the show notes down below. Visit the website, sign up for the challenge. If you were thinking about doing a podcast, but you're not sure on where to start or how to do it, how much time that takes, I'm sure he has everything in there. So I'll
Definitely.
personally jump in and go through the challenge myself.
Excellent. Appreciate that, man. Absolutely. Only too happy.